What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Talk You Walk podcast. We have a special guest who's actually the owner and creator of a local company here in Gainesville, Nahu. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Alula.
Alula. Okay. I just
Alula.
want to make sure I didn't screw that up. You're the owner and the creator of Modernized Mobile, which is an app-making company, also media producing company, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah, digital media, digital marketing, and all of those.
Awesome. So we're really happy to have you on. We made the connections with you through Noah, actually, who's been working with you for a little bit now.
Yeah, about a year. Yes.
Yeah. And before I get started, let me make sure I introduce you guys. My co-host, as always,
Noah, Wilburn. What's good?
And my other co-host slash producer.
I want everyone to know that producing for my lovely host, Austin, is a nightmare.
I'm dead.
It's actually a nightmare.
Wow.
He's the worst. We tried to get that we got that mic working, and the entire time I was trying to get it to work, getting it to work, he was freaking out over every little step of the way. And I just want everyone to know that.
This is my baby, so I'm gonna freak out over everything.
Wait, is that why you're picking my phone call?
What are you talking about? What does that have to do with the
Anyways,
podcast?
no,
that has to do with you being tardy and not being on time.
Oh, well, I was trying to warn you.
What about
Welcome to the Talk.
Welcome to Talk About.
E, F, G.
What are you
My
doing?
name's Georgie. How are the... Let's continue with the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So now that you've witnessed all this, are you ready to leave?
Just about. We
Just
got about 30
right.
seconds left.
There's no watch on that, man.
Why are you going to call me out like that?
All right, Nahu, what's good, man? Tell me a little more about yourself. Where are you from?
So originally I'm from Atlanta, Decatur to be exact. So I grew up pretty much, elementary school through high school in Atlanta. I went to a high school called Lakeside. And I came here to Gainesville for school. And I got stuck here and decided to start my own company.
Well, you got stuck here.
That's a little. Whoa.
It's not hard. Just take I-75 north or south. You can.
Yeah. So just in terms of my living.
Didn't I already use that joke last podcast?
You probably did.
My living life. So I always wanted to do something with coding in my life. I've been coding since high school.
Really?
And
good to you, dude.
Yes.
Coding's
yes,
hard.
definitely. So I wanted to do something, and I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, whether it was app coding or website coding. I just wanted to be coding because on my own I was mainly hacking and doing a lot of network security and breaking into modems and stuff. That's how I originally began.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I know at least 2 or 3 other people that do a lot of coding. That's literally exactly how they got into coding.
Yeah,
you don't understand. The reason people get into coding is because they hack into things.
I mean,
and they think it's fun.
Yeah,
Either that, or this one person I know, they're so good at it that people pick them up and they get hired for other stuff.
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the only way to challenge yourself at that point, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. So yeah, and that's why I try to explain it to people, because for me it was almost out of necessity. I hacked things that I needed. We needed Wi-Fi and stuff, so I learned how to hack routers. I wanted to access different content that wasn't allowed with a US IP, so found how to do workarounds and stuff like that. So that's how I really started. I wanted something and went into.
Just be careful.
Well, back then it wasn't really. They didn't have really laws for it. It was more of frowned upon. But yeah, definitely now you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff.
Gray area.
It's you hacked into Google, but what can we do? Stop it.
You got to learn somewhere. So
Right.
So you got your start doing that. You come from Atlanta. You're now here in Gainesville. Mm-hmm. You had started this company because you had been coding for such a long time. What kind of gave you the idea to start Modernized Mobile?
So I actually entered into the Gainesville Dev Academy 3-4 years ago, and I did the iOS mobile course. And with my kind of foundation of coding and development skills, I found out it was a pretty easy segue. So I realized how easy mobile coding was for me, and then I quickly assembled a team of people who were close to me who had business skills and different mathematical and development skills, and we just kind of jumped out the ledge and filed for the LLC. And, never look back.
Yeah.
So
I was about to say, you do tell me all the time, apps are the gold mine.
Yes, absolutely.
How exactly, would one acquire this gold mine? Like,
So the reason I say that, so apps is the #1 market in all of technology, and so technology is a vast market. Whether it's gaming systems and anything with electricity, all that it encompasses. So to be #1 in technology is gigantic. Just to give you a scope, and apps in general, like the only market that is similar to the app market, I would say, is the website market. And I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the .com boom and the bubble that burst back in '99. So what happened back then was like, yes. So
I had an older brother who explained all that stuff to me as I was getting older. So it made it really weird when you think about a time where, well, this is going to make me sound really young, but when you go, there used to not be an internet?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So me being kind of like on, I guess, middle road millennial, like I got the tail end of that era, and then I'm now like in the core of like the app art. So I realized that was a big variable of understanding that, like, I'm, being a little bit older than y'all, I was able to like catch that.
How old are
you? 32.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, you look young.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
32 going on
Must have been
22.
those ball days, man.
Genetics. But so the website market, so in like 1997, 95, 98, when websites, were just kind of coming to the forefront, anybody who could do HTML or CSS and do a full-fledged website was commanding 6 figures, like, easily. So, for any basic website.
High demand.
Absolutely. Any person who was kind of the first to space for a certain industry of website was an instant millionaire. There was, like, incredible amounts of millionaires that America had never seen before. So, for example, a lot of companies sold dog foods before this, but if you were the first one to have your dog food website, you are taking over, national market. So tons of business, and nothing has been able to kind of replicate that market because it is so unusual, except for apps. So that was what I really saw years ahead, and kind of already my affinity towards tech and stuff. So I was like, we need to jump on this.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So then tell me this then. So like when it comes to social media marketing, because I mean that's pretty much what it's all about.
Yeah.
What ways, I don't know if I'm actually allowed to ask this, but like what ways are you guys using that
social media
marketing?
So a ton of ways. So one big thing I want to point out before that is that, so with marketing is just like any other industry, like the pinnacle is in like big cities in New York, and you go to like a big, Fortune 500 marketing company, right, and you're just, a worker there. So just like most industries, the people who are more seasoned and have a little bit older tend to be the more professional and had more experience and command higher salaries, all that. With marketing, with the advent of social media, things have kind of flip-flopped. You guys' age are literally the best marketers. You guys are blowing the 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds out of the water on Instagram, Snapchat, and that's the pinnacle of marketing. So having our marketing team, for the starters, is a bunch of young people you guys' age, and it's a humongous benefit. We are swiping through all of kind of the baby boomer clients and stuff, and doing circles around them because they don't understand what's going on.
I was about to say that puts you above the rest of the competition because
absolutely,
you're with the grade,
Yes, absolutely. And it's not something that you can research. I'm the king of research. You cannot just research how Instagram works and all that, as opposed to you guys using it for years and knowing the ins and outs, like, organically. Like, there's no question. Exactly.
There's no one who's better at marketing to a demographic than that demographic.
Absolutely.
Right.
Exactly.
And
so,
even if you don't like social media, me personally, I hated it before I got involved in this, and I wasn't really on it. But as you get involved with something, you kind of start to realize, oh, I'm gonna have to get good at this if I want to succeed.
Yes. And with marketing, especially now, it's kind of, there's no question that it is the ultimate platform is social media. Like TV and radio are all dying in every city in America, relatively speaking.
Radio's still alive.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, dude.
Yeah, podcast is making a big boom actually the past 2-3 years.
It's the new radio. Podcasts are the new radio.
Absolutely.
Some would say
the old radio TV.
Some would say that the market's
everything
being flooded, but the way that you have to look at it is that I really believe, and this is going to sound weird, that we're going to kind of have what you call a pendulum swing. At first it was the radio, then it was TV, then it was film, then it was everything like that. They're saying what's going to happen is that it's going to swing right back into audio, and that's why podcasting is exploding the way that it is.
Well, it's because people's lives are only getting more and more busy.
Right. Everyone's always on the go.
With the invention of a very thin wafer-like brick, we gave ourselves the ability to access all of the known information.
Yes.
Worldwide.
Human-wide.
Yeah. What's the saying that the cell phones have more technology than the thing that went to Mars?
No. The calculator.
A calculator has more processing power than the computers that they use to send the moon mission.
Yeah. That's insane. That's insane.
So we have these things. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has access to the internet 24/7. Audio is having such a big comeback because people still want to consume media. They still want to be entertained, but their lives are getting so busy because of these things that they can't watch a video.
Right.
An hour-long podcast.
Exactly.
They have to listen to it.
Well, especially car rides too.
Yeah, car rides.
That I can say. Sometimes I listen to our podcast.
You go back and like, God, I sound terrible.
No, I mean it's like
no, pops his collar while he listens to it. Did I say that? Did
I really say that though?
Did I sound like that? What?
But yeah, I think y'all are all totally right. But I think that there's one more variable maybe that in terms of like content and technology is becoming so efficient now that you can watch a podcast from your favorite, Indian speaker or Chinese speaker from like while you're on a hike in the Appalachian Mountain trails with 4K quality type of thing. So because of that, so now our like threshold for entertainment is becoming almost stream of consciousness. Our expectations now, I need 3 videos playing at once to feel like I'm watching TV kind of thing, or a podcast and TV.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
only gets worse for me. I realized one time I have 2 monitors in my room because I have one for a computer, one for an Xbox. I realized that I had 2 monitors in front of me that were on. I had an iPad, a laptop, and then my phone. And I just kind of sat back and looked at myself and went, "This is too much."
I think the downside of that is that you have a lot of these people, people that are having kids either when we were basically born or anything like that, the generations that are coming after, and they're wanting to diagnose these kids with hyperactive disorder.
Yes.
But the truth is that as technology advances, the more I wouldn't go as far as to say that our brains are evolving, but they're then over generations starting to adapt to a certain type of lifestyle or a certain type of information login that your brain can't really handle. So that's why, you have people like that where they've got to have a TV playing, they've got to have something playing in the background just to feel like they're not having deafening silence.
I would agree with your comment of our brains are evolving. That's absolutely. If you look at the extremes of like even when like man first discovered fire, obviously none of us were there, but we can imagine the amount of thoughts that opened up for generations. There was mankind before fire, then mankind after fire.
Right.
So now the ability to have Google and literally search everything, like to go back to the 60s, you guys is like equivalent. You had your specialty, and the amount of knowledge is astronomical. How much you guys have no more. You guys are so
fingertips.
Exactly, and it's
literally.
But it's not something that you can just feel so easily. You guys can't just say, dang, in the 60s, like people our age wouldn't have known all this kind of. It's hard to really like.
That.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was about to say it's funny because I watched
You said it was funny.
Anyway, so I've been recently watching Stranger Things with my uncle.
Love that.
So he always makes he always makes like a bunch of jokes like, yeah, like back in the 80s, like they're so accurate with it. I was like, I remember watching the show. I'm just like, bruh, if I lived back in the 80s with like the knowledge I have now, I'd be
unstoppable.
I would get away with so much. This is stupid.
I know. I'd be like,
but yeah, it's so crazy how like everything has evolved from like even from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So now.
But how do you quantify just that Google ability? Like that is astronomical because we don't even calculate how many times we Google things and just acquire a whole, for lack of a better explanation, like. Course of knowledge, right? By your whole history, especially you guys' generation, it's unfounded. So it's massive. So I do believe this will in turn shape our brains. Like that's what shapes your brains is like technology and like big points that change humanity. So
yeah. So what do you think the science behind social media marketing is?
So the science behind it, so for starters, I think every company is slightly different. But if I had to say the core science behind everything is stand out. I've heard this before. People have said this, Gary Vee and these type of people. But what is the word they say? It's real popular now. Not like to disrupt. You got that's the new like keyword, I guess, for a lot of these social media gurus.
Like as in like Tekashi 6ix9ine disrupt or like
yes, actually more or less. Yeah, he's the king of that. Actually,
why do you think somebody like that blew up in the first place?
Exactly. So what and overarchingly what that means is like people are looking at ads, whatever your industry is, make it so when they look at it and they look at the next ad of the same within the same industry, it makes them do a double take.
Right.
So,
That's interesting.
so it's disrupting their like train of thought of what they're expecting, what they're anticipating.
Would you say that's creating a negative impact on the field?
So, well, that's where like disrupt can have a positive or negative connotation. Whereas with Tekashi's case, that's as negative as you get. But you know, if you're just out for pure money, that's a success. But if you're out for like, you know, reputation, a little bit more than that, and you have morals.
Who do you think is worse, Eminem or Tekashi? Think about it.
That's a good question.
Just think about it.
I'm not gonna
I know it's a
lie.
bunny trail, but think about it real quick.
Hold on, I'm not gonna lie. You guys kept saying Tekashi, and the first time you said it, I didn't quite hear the word correctly, so I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I just realized what you guys are talking about. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm really annoyed.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say Tekashi was more right. Like Eminem was like beefing with like A&Rs and like people with suits.
Yeah.
Tekashi's doing is like causing trouble with people that like you don't want to be doing that with, and a whole series of them in different across city to city. But so I'd say Tekashi for that.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about investing in like the app market? So whether it's coming out with your own app or actually, you know what?
I think it's the juiciest market in all of investments, bar none.
Y'all hear that?
I think it's the
Y'all hear that?
juiciest
Okay, just making sure.
of all industries, bar none. And I can prove it. There's no other industry ever, anything close to this, that has had this many diverse, like, humongous companies that are multi-billion-dollar companies, right? Obviously, medical is a huge industry across the world. Many billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar industries, right? It's embedded within the government many times. It's very, but apps is a pure like, you know, entrepreneurial thing. And this to have this many, like we have games where it's just popping bubbles, billions of dollars, right? Gaming is the biggest one. There's, you know, Slack, $1 billion app, WhatsApp, 19 billion acquired by Facebook.
Yeah.
So now we're not talking about they made 5 million or 10 million, multi-billion-dollar app companies. There's no industry ever like this. So
as a company, where, you know, going forward, and since you've built it, you know, do you yourself, have you set a precedent to distinguish the apps that prey on people's weaknesses? Like you would say, like those apps that have games like that prey on the addictive, you know, the addictive nature of buying things and getting to the next level versus the things that are actually going to revolutionize where we are from 20 years from now.
Great question, Greg. So in 2019, I read a lot of like other tech companies' blogs and a lot of owners' forums is what they're called. So what a lot of development companies in 2019 have been emphasizing is making their apps almost addictive. There's another way they describe it. I can't think of it right now, but basically making them so you can't go your day without them, whether it's a game, making it so it's gamified and super
gamification.
Exactly. So,
Shout out to Steven.
so yeah, does that answer?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
No, it's just something.
You do so many shout outs.
It's just, that's just one of the things that I, you know, as soon as that I knew that we were going to have you on, is that the first question that comes to my mind is that you're right. The app industry and where it's going, I mean, it hasn't slowed down since they introduced the first iPhone. You know, it was around like 20, I'd probably say 2007, that everything from then on has just been nonstop.
And that's where I wanted to finish my story actually on the similarities within the website market. So in 1998, in that time when if you could do HTML and build a site, which in the coding world, HTML and CSS are not the more difficult ones. They're pretty easy at this point. But if you could at that point, 6 figures at a minimum, like millions of dollars if you owned a site in the market, and relatively easy to achieve success because you're the first dog food selling website, so everybody's going to go to you. So it was then. But what happened was the proverbial bubble burst, which happens in industries in like 2000, 2001. And what happened was like the market threshold hit. Yeah. So basically supply matched the demand.
Right.
And then demand exceeded. So then, or supply exceeded. So then, and what caused that, which was like the catalyst, was the advent of a bunch of softwares that made automated website creation. Mm-hmm. So then, you know, doing a website became easier and easier. Then people with Wix and WordPress, Squarespace. Absolutely. Now you can't get a website client for more than 5,000. If you can, call me.
Let me know your secrets.
Yes. So that's what happened with the bubble bursting, and then the whole website market kind of like, I'm not going to say collapsed. It just became kind of old-fashioned, where, you know, only the big ones win, or big marketing had
It became accessible. For
Exactly.
everyone.
Exactly.
We like what you're saying. when the .com era first started exploding, if you were making those websites 6 figures at a minimum,
Exactly.
obviously someone would have to pay you those numbers to make it. So like,
Yes.
it was very exclusive to get a website.
Exactly.
Now
Exactly.
we have a website.
Exactly.
Like any regular Joe with $40 can get a website for a few months.
Yes.
You know.
Exactly.
Like, so
Exactly. And that's what
it became accessible.
Yes.
So.
And what market is more similar to websites, and how unique was that market? Like, you can't compare steel or the housing market to websites. It was a very unusual
That's a
tech
good point.
scene,
Yeah.
except apps.
Also because it's not exactly physical.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
a digital service,
Yeah.
but still very complicated, very complex. And
Yeah.
so that's where I saw like apps was the one in a million, industry style that was going to replicate that. So that's where I feel. And apps, you said it, like apps, and I wanted to attach this to podcasts because I believe in this too. So their apps is still growing, but it's far from reached like the market saturation point. Same with podcasts. Podcast was big, I believe, in the 80s and early 90s stuff, kind of died away. Now it's coming back because it's attaching on to all this whole app craze. Because now, PDA phones are the huge. And a big statistic that I like to tell people, which is super powerful for understanding the app market, is so the biggest area in the world of kind of like, how do you describe this? Uncharted people, I guess, that's not in like, the global census and stuff like that,
Right.
is sub-Saharan Africa. So sub-Saharan Africa is the most underdeveloped with that size of population. Obviously, Antarctica, for example, has a tiny population. It's not inhabited. It's not, on the global
why
scene
we
and stuff.
have the
But they don't have
indigenous
a, they don't
tribes
have
that they find
a,
on tropical
exactly. They don't have a certain amount of human beings to be able to like make it,
Yeah. Also, the scarce few little islands. that
Exactly.
still
Exactly.
have,
So like, I just examine that in extreme to
on
make
them,
the
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But across sub-Saharan African, which is relatively pretty poor, there are more. And this was a stat from like 2015, 16. So I don't know if it's still true in 2019. But there was a point where there were more people with PDA phones across from east to west Africa, the whole thing, than there were electricity and running water combined. So more people.
Wait, say that again?
That's
So there was
mind-blowing.
more people from the entire sub-Saharan Africa. It wasn't just zones that they picked. The entire sub-Saharan Africa, there was more people with PDA phones. They all had phones. They all had Blackberries and Blueberries,
Right.
more than they had access to running water and electricity.
What?
So a lot of villages and stuff would have a phone and stuff because they became so cheap and so like accessible.
Right.
And that, but the running water and the infrastructure that required, I guess, was, bigger barrier
way
to
too
entry.
intense. Yeah.
Cost.
Yeah,
It's just the
yes,
cost.
exactly. So that's still very powerful. So all of Africa is on this global market. So it's not just America, it's not just China. So Africa, then you can become a billionaire by just making an app that goes viral in sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow.
If that puts it into perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So what market would you say that you're trying to hit personally?
So for us, we're not the typical just app. A lot of the app companies, they have their own app. We are app developers, even though we do retain equity in a lot of our apps. We are open to that because a lot of our apps are we really believe in, and that's where we're really after. We want to be able to bring our own app once we have a good enough idea. But I would say that I'm most after like the market segment is currently we're targeting towards students right now, which is not the best because they don't really have the most money, but just our app ideas cater to students. We have a lot of like,
we are.
yeah, for sure.
Huge population of students just because of UF.
You're almost kind of revolutionizing what I would call Gainesville, Silicon Valley, if you think about it.
Yeah, they're trying to make that. They're trying to make this like Austin, trying to make this a tech hub. There's a bunch of tech.
Yeah, it's actually crazy.
What's the new?
happening.
There's a new center being built. If I don't know what it's called. I'd seen it on somebody else's Instagram feed. But it's basically called Tech City or something like that, where I'm guessing it's going to be something sort of like that, where you're bringing in these people to then not only fund these apps, fund these websites, crowdfund all these.
Yeah,
these
so there's
projects.
there's a little collection of tech companies that are all pretty tight knit. We're trying to like elbow our way in, and they have like established markets, and they're trying to make this a hub for like a tech city kind of, and they're trying to like recruit tech individuals and stuff like that, and make a little scene for that, which this city needs so bad. There's no young professional scene in Gainesville.
No.
To have the best university in Florida, the young professional scene is abysmal.
Well, it's because everyone leaves Gainesville.
Well, I was about
get out of college.
True, yeah, which is another problem.
Say, would you blame that on the populace that's here in Gainesville right now? Because I've heard that it's generational wise, it's been the closed-mindedness of the people that live here.
What's interesting though is that and I was literally just talking about this. So almost every college town has that same dynamic. So I'm from Georgia. UGA, the city is called Athens. Same dynamic, the same demographic, same kind of thing as Gainesville.
Yeah, because we have a very large retirement population in Gainesville, don't we?
Right.
Yeah. Ohio State, the city is Ohio State, but the same dynamic, same kind of thing. I lived in actually Chapel Hill, UNC. UNC is a little bit modern with their but the college towns tend to do that. So I think that there's some kind of dynamic where, because the colleges run, like, they have immense power,
Right.
so there's some kind of dynamic where it benefits the college to keep the city down for a myriad of and there's people that I'm sure that around the city who would support this, and there's reasons that the city, when the city stays kind of relatively poor and down, the school benefits in a certain way, whether it's like property values,
Really?
or all sorts of ways. So that's why these dynamics have taken place across.
But I will say this though, and they've been getting a lot better, because I was recently talking to the VP for Economic Development at Santa Fe, and so they have the UF Innovative Hub.
Yes.
So they're trying to encourage a lot of young entrepreneurs who have startup businesses, and they want to keep them in Gainesville, because the market here for a lot of different businesses, whether it's apps or selling whatever, it's really high, especially because Gainesville is growing exponentially.
It's growing too fast. It's growing too much.
Well, it's growing either way, and they're getting things figured out. But so Santa Fe is actually coming up with their own hub. So they already have one, but they're actually
I
can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, we actually know. We had a couple of meetings with the guy who runs that, and his daughter actually is like an amazing designer who did some work with us. But the guy who runs it, it's called IPPDC, and the main branch is in like the corner of Hawthorne right there. And we entertained getting office space. We were going to possibly go to their office space. It's just a little bit far, but yeah, they're doing a lot of things. They're doing a lot of things there.
Yeah. No, and I think it's great because they're trying to pretty much encourage people who. They're trying to increase the need for jobs. You know what I mean? And because I think that's the main problem. That's why people don't stay, because the lack of opportunity that is put out there.
I also think it's that people don't go to a university like the University of Florida, which is which is country-wide. Like, it's known around the United States as a very prestigious college or university. You don't really go to the University of Florida to get a degree in something that won't take you somewhere big. Yeah. And Gainesville is not a place where you can be big.
That's exactly.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
That's the solution.
They're trying to make this a big place.
And you're right too. And that's what a lot of the tech heads, I believe, think in the city, that they need to do exactly what you're saying. But I believe what needs to take place before it's like techie, they need to make the culture better. It needs to be like fun. There needs to be things to do. There needs to be that.
There are things to do in Gainesville. There are things. In Gainesville, you can drive to Orlando real quick.
Exactly.
I will say that though.
Think about how history would have changed if Walt Disney did build it here instead of Orlando.
That was the story.
That was the story.
Orlando would be the Gainesville.
He almost built it here in Gainesville, but it turns out because of the zoning laws and the property tax, because of UF, he goes no, and went to Orlando, and then basically made it a city. So you look at that, and it's like, and you look in the history books, it would only take one big. For any city, really, like how Miami was built. Miami's only been around big, if you think about it, for a generation, 100 years.
Oh my God! Go Google right now. Everybody watching, go Google the Miami skyline from 1960s or something. It looks like Ocala. Right. No offense to Ocala.
All the offense in my part.
Seriously, great point.
Miami is like over the last 100 years. It's just been some would say it's because of the cocaine.
Yes,
but also
wait, I missed that. What?
Yeah. Some would say it's because of the cocaine business that's going on there. Did you know that because the city was built? That's why they say the city was built off of cocaine, basically.
Yes.
Because you had all these people. It's got
dripping like the narcos.
It's got the most. That's absolutely.
It
insane.
looks like Ocala.
Is that insane?
And then
the Miami skyline.
There's a city skyline there. But they say that there's more banks per capita in all of Miami that there is in the United States of America.
Whoa.
Yes.
That
Think
that
about
doesn't
it.
seem.
Think about it.
All
That
the-
doesn't seem
because there was
possible.
because the amount of money that was laundered through Miami was like the number one industry. Even now, like Miami has like 95%
Word.
of all credit card fraud in America comes from like Miami,
Word.
South Florida, and on top of that, it's like the most lucrative crime in America the past 5 years running. So
Florida.
do
All you need is one
Florida.
job.
Florida.
When the I can't speak English. When the recession
Can't speak
hit,
either.
When the recession hit, it was said that the people that would work at the banks, the people that would own these banks, they would then combine all of their funds into one bank owned by them just to keep their money safe. Just because
Yeah,
of
because
how bad the
everyone
markets crashed.
everyone owned multiple banks
But
back
because
then.
the cocaine business was so high, that's what kept Miami going.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
this is yes,
insane.
absolutely. This is
That
not
is-
this is
that
not
is-
like a
that is
wives' tale or
insane.
like a story from like this is like a fact. This is like
Yeah, yeah.
really what took place.
Well, not just there, but Florida. I would say the biggest problem going for trying to grow. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like the biggest problem with trying to grow towns/cities, kind of like Gainesville, would be the Medicare fraud that's going on statewide.
Yes, and that's another story in
That's a
itself.
whole different thing.
Oh my
But
That's a whole different topic.
Yes,
We
that
won't
be.
get into that.
I was just. It was Joe Rogan actually.
Really?
Yeah. No, it was Joe Rogan who did that. I was listened to a couple weeks ago who was
It was
telling me
because
about
of Joe Rogan.
and he put Joe Rogan did it. Joe.
it's all your fault, dude.
Joe, if you're listening, please tell us because that would be awesome.
So you made him so he was talking about those are like two of the biggest industries, so credit card fraud and I didn't realize that actually Medicare fraud surpasses the credit card. The Medicare fraud apparently in Florida is just astronomical through the roof.
So hold on. I understand what credit card fraud is. What
Yes.
is Medicare
Me too.
fraud?
Exactly. I didn't understand. So it's so people who a myriad of things that take place. Like it's getting kickbacks for money of fake operations, getting operations for free insurance. Like if you're sick and not having to do like not having to pay your insurance, but you have to get free medical care. But what I learned on his podcast was that that Florida was neck deep in Medicare fraud, but I'm gonna lose it now. What was the interesting detail? It was tied to how many banks there were. I just had it on to we might have to come back to it. Sorry, guys. It was a really really interesting fact that he had said, and it's slipping my mind right now, but I'll remember it in a second and I'll bring it up.
That's all very interesting, but
Wow.
yeah, that's
Are you about to force us back on track right
yeah,
now?
a little bit.
How dare you.
I had to.
Before we get back on track, I think there's one dying question that I wanted to get out. What would you say Gainesville? I mean, this podcast so far has been very local, so I'll continue on that theme.
Really quick, I just remembered.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Go for it.
So what it was so Rick Scott, the governor for I think
Yes,
I don't know if you guys know, he committed the biggest Medicare fraud in the history of America ever. And I actually know this because when we were doing our app thing, we had been desperately trying to get into medical. So we went to we pursued.
I do remember that.
We pursued Gainesville Regional. North Florida Regional by across from the mall for a while. We've been trying to get an app for them. They have like a weight loss program that's working well that we talked to people about possibly doing an app. But they're owned by a company called HCA Hospitals, I believe. And HCA is like the biggest medical conglomerate in America. It's like thousands of hospitals and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one he owned. That was the one that he was the CEO of.
Gotcha.
And
Wow.
still got reelected.
Yes, and they just did Medicare fraud through the roof. And then after
USA.
that, he became, rightfully so, the governor of Florida for two terms, I believe.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Joe Rogan was just tying in how, of course, Florida, who is the number one of Medicare fraud, would elect the governor who has the history of. That's his only company.
Yeah.
The biggest history of medical fraud.
Yeah.
The question that I wanted to get
Keep
back
it close to
to
the chest, man.
dude. Honestly, perfect way to represent Florida.
We know who we are. We're not hiding.
But for Gainesville,
Well said.
and to grow it, what would you say would be the biggest problem that we have to eliminate if we want to grow this place?
Oh, without a doubt.
Student toxicity.
No, it would be the racial disparities in the city, without
Really?
a doubt. Yeah,
Ooh.
there's no doubt. So, like, I'm from Atlanta, so it's kind of like a black mecca where a lot of black people are doing well, a lot of black businesses thriving.
Yeah.
A lot of black people are not just in the work; they own the businesses, they own the buildings, which is unusual across America. But so I have I realize, like, growing up in liberal Atlanta, I have a standard of seeing black people obviously doing, like, the bad stuff, and then but also seeing the other side, seeing a lot of businessmen, a lot of good black role models. Whereas as I left Atlanta, I realized how rare that is in America. which I didn't know growing up. And so Gainesville stands out. So I come from like a threshold of seeing, kind of seeing it even relatively, whereas in Gainesville, crazy segregated. You can literally draw a line where it's a black community, and that's not too abnormal. That's across even in other countries and stuff.
Especially in southern parts of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's the full spectrum, within the other demographics of the different economic levels, low, medium, and high. But within blacks, it's like 95% are well below the poverty line. Well, I'm talking about like insane poverty. So it's just and it's a tight knit community. So like it's something that should be relatively easy to fix compared to other cities. But that's in my opinion, the number one problem in Gainesville.
Wow. It's absolutely insane to me that you can go down south in Miami and have the Hispanic community, like the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Dominicans, everybody that's down there growing a business, and just the more north you go, it's somewhere in a sweet spot of the northern parts of Florida where you get this wider community, and then you go just a little bit more north, maybe just a little bit east, and then you find all of the like you're saying, the black business owners that are then churning Atlanta. It's crazy to me that the culture here, and then maybe a couple, it's like a few hundred miles away, where the culture is so entirely different in Atlanta.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a great point you bring. And but like a lot of to people who were born outside of Florida, the perception of Florida is super liberal, and Miami is pictured, whereas like North Florida is like South Georgia, is like Mississippi, is like Alabama, more so in terms of demographics and culture and all that. People don't realize that North Florida, people who are not from Florida don't understand the culture of North Florida at all.
Florida is so long that the southern part of Florida is so far south that it's northern.
Yeah. Wait, exactly. Dude, you're not kidding.
I have said that my entire life. You can quote me on that. That is the one thing that I always say. Florida is so big, so long. The south part of Florida is so far south, it's north. Yeah. And that's just true.
I agree.
I'm not going to lie, it's a little insulting when you hear the people that aren't from here, that when they want to look at it and go, well, it's where the snowbirds come. That's all it's good for. And it's like, I wouldn't necessarily agree.
I have no idea what that statement even means.
It's just pretty much
New Yorkers and
people from north. And
it's the hot vacation spot in America. If you don't want to go out of the country, if you don't want to like go to somewhere like Cuba or the Jamaicans or in Europe, if you don't want to go to Europe, you want to retire to a sunny beach place, you go to Florida.
Yes.
Florida,
more beaches.
Gainesville has a ridiculously high retirement population, but the whole of Florida is it's ridiculously big. Like the ratios and the numbers are ridiculously big.
We literally have a stopping point that's almost a small city called the Villages, which is based off of the retirement.
I know the Villages well. We were pursuing an app for the Villages. One of the guys who used to be part of our company, this guy Jonah, who was really close to all of us. He's from the Villages High School. He grew up right there. His close friends was like the CEO of the Villages. His ex-girlfriend's dad was the CEO of the tech team for the Villages.
Wow.
So we were like putting apart. Jonah took me to, this is actually a really interesting story. So he took all of the equity owners of the company for a whole Saturday night to one of the village squares. And we got to sit and like just go and spend like a whole Saturday night, which usually you can't do. You can't get on the grounds unless you're like over 55, I believe. It's like a really high old. And this was like, we were doing like naturalistic observation and just taking research, and we were trying to like prepare for an app launch or an app pitch. So we were the only person under 40, like 100, like the only person there. Yeah. It was really interesting. I understood fully the appeal of the village. It's the number one retirement community in America, and I totally understood. And this is what takes place. So first of all, they have these like town squares. It's like a bunch of like cookie cutter neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And they have each one has like a town square that's like immaculate. You won't find a piece of grass out of line. It's like Pleasantville.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So nice. But why they love it is because they're so strict on that age limit that when I was leaving the town square, there was like a group of like 65-year-old guys who were literally walking in like y'all would be at 17, walking into like the dance and something. They operate like they're in high school, but they're like 65, so they get to be like the man again. Whereas, and I realized if you're like a 65-year-old, they want to like mingle and stuff. But if you throw one like 35-year-old in there, the girls aren't looking at the 65-year-old. You know what I mean? So they love it, and I understood. Like if you're an old person, you need to get there.
You need to get there now.
Yeah,
let's talk about this. So you were saying the racial disparities and whatnot in Gainesville. Let's talk a little bit about the Gainesville Black professionals.
Yes.
So
I actually had a quick spin-off question for that real quick before we get into that. I wanted to ask, you said that like that's like the big problem is the disparity, that racial disparity. Do you think that as soon as because Gainesville is gearing up to become a Silicon Valley, do you think that the capitalist system will realize that that's a big issue, and do you think that it could get dicey? Because I honestly do not know how to word this.
The capitalistic, so like the like the political system.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's what's causing.
How do you think that the city would handle that? Is what I think is what.
That's the piece. So there's a a handful of people with extreme positions of power that they don't want the status quo to change. It's not even just the racial thing, just in general. They don't want they want the swing of power in all of what's going on currently to stay. Not like, so for example, they might want Florida, the university, to keep the city kind of at odds so that they benefit by the commotion somehow. There's motives there, but for the most part, like I think that it is in the hands of a handful of people who have immense power. It's not like because most people will just kind of follow behind once the leaders kind of implement policies.
And there's enough of them that everyone else will just get swept under.
Somewhat. I mean, I have my I think it goes deep. There's a lot of variables. It's hard. This is something it's not easy to fix. Gainesville is fixable. It's improvable. It shouldn't be this drastic. It shouldn't be this, and I've taught a few classes actually at Eastside. I've been all over, so I feel like I have a good feel, but honestly, it's the management of the city. The management of the city is corrupt. The city and the county, and I forget which one, they're always at odds, but there's certain people who just throw monkey wrenches into a lot of decision making and stuff. And the school, the university has, their hidden or corrupt agendas, I'll say too. So we're all three of those clash, and this is all my opinion, being like a peon or a pawn in the city.
Yeah. I find it really interesting that you point that out, though. I'd love to expand on that at a later date.
Yeah, for sure. And I only get snippets from certain people that I'm close to and stuff, but there's an issue going on for sure.
What
were you saying?
Yeah. Wow. So, no, I just wanted to bring up a little something like the Gainesville Black professionals.
Yeah.
I personally believe because it is definitely a newer event that's going on, and I think it is definitely a power move especially for people,
dominates my social media. So whoever's running their social media is doing well.
Right.
They get good.
Oh yeah, definitely. They just had an event too.
I saw.
Yeah. And then we went to that event.
Yeah.
As well, yeah. So, but I just wanted to make that known.
Yeah. I think it's been amazing. I think the lady who's running it, I forget her name, but I keep hearing about her. But you're supposed to know this.
So right.
She is amazing. Though I don't know who.
Oh my god.
that was a good bow out. Me neither. Don't. But
I was hoping you.
I thought she was exceptional. When I went to that, she was like a master of ceremonies. Well, she greeted everyone. She made everybody feel kind of very comfortable.
Yeah.
And she led it well, which is not easy to do, and made it entertaining. I want to go back to the next event because she was entertaining.
For sure.
And that's what matters. Even if you're negative or positive, if it's entertaining, people will keep coming.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Takashi.
I agree with that. I agree with that. So I think my last question for you would be, because I know, since I do work with you, we talk to a lot of higher up people in the Gainesville area, whether it's for mostly business, talking to them about apps. But I think give us some more detail about how you should hold yourself when approaching somebody of higher stature than you.
Yeah. So I think,
life skill
I could be general, just be professional, try to be serious.
Right.
But if I were to try to add some more insight, I might say, know your audience. So for starters, don't go in with a preset way. you know, like even I have a good friend, for example, who's like not succeeding in the dating world. You know, he's trying to find the right girl for him, and he's struck out many times. And he like is obsessed with all these like, you know, how to meet a girl, how to like talk to a girl books, and all the people that like the hookup artists and all those things.
Right.
So he goes in with like a pre-made plan, and all the stuff that they're saying is right and stuff. But in general, like just having like a preset plan, it messes you up. You just have to go organically. You just have, so that's the biggest advice. Like just be yourself and like go in confidently. Don't try to map out a plan. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that, and I'm going to like, you know, perfectly engineer what our conversation, it ends up just coming off as like flawed.
Because when you do stuff like that, when you're not organic, when you're not you, as soon as people buy into that and they get with you and everything, sooner or later you're going to have to drop that and actually be you, and then those people are going to leave because that's not the same.
That's fake.
That's not the same person. Exactly.
That's
They call you fake, and that's not the same person I signed up for.
Exactly, and that's why I like to use my friend who was always talking to me about the self-help things, and they're saying, I'm like, wow, that's good tips, that's a good advice, but it like that hidden variable of like going in like, hi, I'm really cool, you know, like, and planning what you're gonna do, it just wipes you out.
And that doesn't mean to just ignore those types of things.
Yes.
It doesn't mean like ignore advice that is given to you and everything by someone who knows what they're doing. It's taking that advice and then incorporating it into yourself, and then twisting it to where it's organic for you using those tips.
Exactly. Well said. I couldn't have said it better.
You're an incredibly genuine person, and the discussions here, I think it really is a good representation, not only for your company but you as a person. Thank you for coming on here. Thank you for having these discussions with us. I can't talk. I feel like I'm having a stroke. It's like, am I the only one?
I'm just freezing. So I'm like,
it's always cold in here.
He's a furnace. I'm telling you. He's sweating. You see him?
No, I'm not. I'm
always
Your
cold,
face
though.
is
I'm always cold. My genetics is all from like the equator, so I'm all like.
That is hilarious. Maybe if you two sat closer together, you'd balance each other out.
Yeah, you know, we just met. I don't think he wants to do that. So,
why not?
but thank you, Nahu. Thank you.
Nahu,
absolutely, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate you coming out here, man.
Awesome.
Guys.
No, hold on. No, hold on.
Oh yeah. No. We want to give you a chance. Plug your company. Plug every
social
media.
That's what I was about to like introduce.
My dog.
Sorry. Sorry.
Gosh, man. Sorry. Can't
You take too long to get to the point.
You're right. We're working on it. Don't worry. We're working on it.
I just realized I feel like a terrible person. All right, never mind. Go ahead.
That's kind of rude.
You could just flash the name across the video.
You can help us out with that.
Yeah, honestly.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah, so anything that you'd like to shout out, to plug, or anything?
Yeah, so the company, we are called Modernized Mobile. We sell apps, app development. If you have your idea, passion project, you want an app for your business. We also offered social media marketing. We have a really, really great team that has a lot of the newest strategies and softwares to really like boost your business, whatever the industry is. We offer SEO and a bunch of other like marketing techniques and stuff like that for any of your business needs.
Awesome. Sweet. Awesome. All the information will be down below.
Yeah. In the description.
In the description. Stay tuned for a little stay tuned for a little video
I always wanted to
at
do
the
that.
end of this.
You just lost some points. You just lost some points. I'm sorry, man.
Oh man.
Sorry.
Thanks for watching, y'all.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's just. Hey, whoa, hey. So, thanks for watching this episode. If you liked it, you can go to our website at www.thetalkyourwalk.com. Has links to all of our social medias and platforms and everything. And check us out on Instagram at the Talk Your Walk Pod. And yeah, this episode's almost done, so you can go now.